Hi there. I'm late for something that I advertised, which is just bad form. I'm sorry, folks. Hi. I am here just to have a brief chat with Paul Pazimino, who is the Associate Director of Amazon Watch. And I'm going to see if I can add him into this conversation right now. Bear with me momentarily. Paul, I'm looking for you right now. Trying to sort this. Bear with me. This is that awkward beginning to Hello, Paul.
Hey,
How
hey,
are
it's really,
you? That worked so. That was actually remarkably efficient.
I've tried this a few times and every like 5 out of 6 times it works okay. And every once in a while, everything just falls apart. But
Well, I hopefully this isn't one of those outliers. I think that we got it. Things are working. How are you?
I'm great. It's cool to meet you. Thank you for this. This is
Great.
fantastic.
Great to meet you as well. And thank you for all of the work that you've been doing, preserving the Amazon and standing up for the rights of the indigenous people of the Amazon basin for so many years. I'm going to get my stats wrong here, but you've been working for Amazon Watch as associate director for more than a decade now?
Yeah, going on 14 years.
14 years. Wow.
14 years.
That's remarkable. I just finished a TV show that ran for 15 years, and it felt like an entire lifetime. So I know the commitment that you've made here. We, I, as you know, I run this little scavenger hunt, and we've sort of
Little.
tried to laser point our collective charitable focus in this hunt on a particular project that you are working on. And I was wondering if maybe you could be the one to unfurl the information about the Kichwa people.
Yes, Quechua.
Yeah, Kichwa.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, I'm just like overwhelmed. I can't believe I didn't know about Gish before, but I'm there forever now. I am amazed at the power of the people that you have organized to do so much in such a little time. As somebody who's been working in this for, as you pointed out, 14 years, I haven't seen this kind of momentum behind something, and it's really exciting. So first off, thank you, and it's so great that you're, using this to demonstrate attention towards something that's so vital. Um,
Well,
the
thank you for
is
thank you for saying that, and I just want to say, this is one of those great examples of many hands making light work, but also it's really lovely having a group of people who like to focus their attention on having a positive impact in a concentrated manner. Um, so we're just fortunate to be able to do this. But carry on, yes.
well, I mean, it's probably, I mean, obviously we're doing this work. Amazon Watch exists to defend the rainforest and advance the rights of indigenous peoples. And we do our work through solidarity and direct partnership with communities across the Amazon. And one of the critical issues that people just don't have enough information about is the effect of oil drilling. In fact, some people don't even realize that oil is drilled in the Amazon,
Right.
which is really kind of insane that we're actually looking for that we're still looking for new oil, but let alone in the Amazon, places like the Amazon and the Arctic, which are so ecologically sensitive and vital to our climate. But on top of that, it's indigenous communities, it's communities of color, globally, but especially in places like Ecuador, who are on the front lines, who suffer first at the expense of oil drilling and resource extraction. And this is the story of communities who can no longer subsist on the rainforest that provides everything they need because of oil extraction to meet the needs of people so far away, to meet the needs of and the profits of corporations.
Right.
Most people don't know that most of the oil extracted from the Ecuadorian Amazon ends up in the United States. Most of that is refined in California. And it's not branded when you go to the pump. You don't see that it says extracted from Amazonian indigenous lands at the expense of their lives. But that's what happened here. So um,
Can I
First off,
very briefly interject here? This is
yeah,
something that we've been talking about in, our Gish community, and I've been talking about with many Americans for the last year, is how our position of privilege can impact people of color. And I think a lot of times, myself included, in the past year, there have been these, epiphanies that we should have had a long time ago. We're having a lot of, self-awareness emerging. But one of the things that I think we have been kind of myopic about is looking at how race operates and privilege operates in domestically, and we don't think about the fact that when we're to the pump to pump cheap gasoline into our cars, we're actually doing that riding on the backs of indigenous people in the Amazon, who are, helping us get cheap oil out of the ground because there's no environmental protections because, corporations think they don't matter because they're people of color. So anyway, I think that we have to start thinking about how all of these systems operate globally, not just locally.
yeah, and I would be remiss if I didn't point out that the legacy of destruction that we're going to talk about today originated when Texaco, a U.S. oil company, became the first oil company to drill anywhere in the Amazon. They went to Ecuador in the 1960s. They drilled and dumped intentionally for decades because there was no one watching what they were doing, all to save some money. And they left behind more than 16 billion gallons of toxic oil waste, the size of Manhattan, in giant pits. And then they left the country, took their profits, and said, we're done here, we're not coming back. And if there were ever an example of U.S. oil company trampling on the rights of indigenous people with zero consequence thus far, it's now Chevron. So Texaco became Chevron. And what's really vital to understand here is that the indigenous peoples went to court in an epic case, and they fought for years while people were being poisoned every day. They were fighting in court. People were dying, and they were doing it through the system. In 2011, 10 years ago last month, they won a $9.5 billion verdict. 29 Ecuadorian judges looked at the facts all the way up to their highest courts and said, Chevron needs to pay to clean up and to help the health costs. And what happened? Chevron said, we're never going to pay. They found a white U.S. judge, former tobacco industry lawyer in New York, who didn't look at the evidence and said, no, this case is a fraud and Chevron doesn't have to pay. And if you want to ask someone ever ask you to define environmental racism, that's it right there. And that's what's happened now. And so, I want to talk about the spill that we're responding to, which is so critical, but it's important for people to understand that today, Stephen Donziger, one of the lawyers who helped win that $9.5 billion, is sitting on house arrest where he's been for 18 months because he helped beat Chevron, convicted of no crime. Chevron made up a case to say that that case in Ecuador is a fraud. And every judge in Ecuador has looked at it and said Chevron needs to pay. And that's the legacy that has led to what's happened now. So a year ago,
we've been talking to Steve as well, and did
yeah,
with him just recently. But it's he's continuing to fight, and I think that there's some hope on the horizon with a recent ruling that's at least throwing out some of his contempt of court charges.
Yeah, it's starting to chip away. A little bit of daylight is shining through the attempt to silence him. And it's important because more and more people are catching on. Like, you're getting involved and raising awareness about what's happening to Stephen because, Chevron has scared media outlets from covering this. I know for a fact, journalists, editors, the lawyers pick up the phone, the story goes away. You will not see it on CNN. CNN's First Amendment lawyer is a big member of the firm that fought for Chevron, Gibson, Dunn, and Crutcher. Mm-hmm. So that's why it's important for people like you to get the word out because it's being silenced elsewhere. We have to stand up to these oil companies. And so what's happened a year ago is that, Chevron left, Texaco left, they still haven't cleaned up. But of course, oil continues to be pumped out of the Ecuadorian Amazon. And there are almost daily oil spills in Ecuador and Peru because it's very difficult to get oil from deep into the rainforest through pipelines all the way to the coast to be refined and then sent to the United States and elsewhere. And so last April, there was a massive oil spill when this pipeline burst and leaked into the Coca River. And we're talking about 700,000 gallons of oil. And this affected primarily the Quechua people who live along the banks of these rivers. And that's why this urgent relief is so important, because they have been fighting to get the government and these oil companies, one of which is Occidental Petroleum, based in California, which has a legacy of polluting in Peru for many years. In fact, we sued them with the Achuar in Peru and won years ago. And so the government has failed to clean up. They have failed to provide relief. And indigenous peoples are organizing themselves, and they're reaching out to the world, asking for support and solidarity. And that's what this fund is about and why it's so important. There are 8 different communities. There's over 1,000 women, and it's important to focus on the indigenous women here too, not only because Monday is International Women's Day, but indigenous women almost always bear a harder brunt of all of these effects, whether it's health related, environment. They carry on their backs a burden greater than anyone. And so Amazon Watch works very directly and deliberately with indigenous women to help build their leadership and give them what they need to meet their needs. And that's why this fund is so great, because it's going to women who are organizing to provide food relief, to plant new crops, to organize, even just to get people from one community to another to plan to meet their health needs is a tremendous burden. It's a burden of cost, it's a burden of time. Women are raising children. So to have the capacity to do that means that you have to accompany them long term. And that's what Amazon Watch does.
And the Quechua people whose land has been polluted are subsistence farmers, right?
Yes, most of the community.
The land where they have been harvesting their food from, and the water that they rely on, so badly polluted that they can no longer survive in the place that their ancestors have lived, and they need to relocate to farmland, which costs money. They need new stores of seeds, and
Yes.
and additional support in order to relocate. Right? I mean, that's the bedrock of what we're helping to support here. Correct?
Yes, exactly. And it's done hand in hand with the efforts to have their rivers cleaned, because fish and hunting from the animals that then, feed off of that same river are vital to their survival also, because it's not just farming communities, but hunting communities too. So it's the government's responsibility to clean this up, along with these oil companies that were part of the consortium. And they have washed their hands of it. They've said it's done. It's clearly not. But what makes it even more dangerous now is that because of the COVID crisis, which has hit there have been almost 2 million cases across the Amazon, and so many indigenous communities have been affected, that it's more dangerous to leave your community and travel elsewhere to look for food to be purchased, because that places that entire community at greater risk. So that's why this is in conjunction with women who are organizing to protect and have local healthcare needs met. So get medicines to communities so they don't have to leave, get foods into community so that while they're rebuilding and creating new crops, they have something to survive on in the meantime. And all of this is part of the process of enforcing or supporting food sovereignty, not just food security, right? These indigenous communities have the right to determine what happens on their territories. And oil companies are going in and extracting and polluting. And this pipeline it still hasn't been repaired. It's still shoddy, and it's still going to continue to leak. And so until they have the right to stand up and say, you need to get off of our lands, then they're at risk the next time an oil spill happens. So all of this work is done with the long-term project of enforcing the right to self-determination, free, prior, and informed consent. And that's the basis upon which Amazon Watch works in solidarity to help communities sue their government, ask for international support, and keep these oil companies out. Because the irony is, of course, we as a global community, we desperately need the Amazon in order to survive. We cannot survive the climate crisis without it. And so drilling for oil is a double destruction, not only burning oil we can't afford to burn, but destroying the ecosystem that we need in order to reclaim that carbon. And it's like we're eating ourselves by supporting it. So the faster the global community catches up to the fact that these places need to be protected first, the better we're going to be when we confront the climate crisis. And the most effective way, and I know I've been saying a lot, but the most effective way to protect the rainforest, scientifically proven, is to advance the rights of indigenous peoples who have been protecting it.
Well,
oh, it looks like there's a little hang up. And
there was a little hang up on my end too, but you're smooth now. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
we're good.
Okay, good. Well, I'm going to post a link to the fundraising page that we have here, and also a link to your website, just so people can find out more about Amazon Watch and the work that you're doing, and in particular the Quechua people that we're supporting right now. But this is just a small puzzle of what we're doing, and I want people to know about your efforts because it's so important, and it has ripple effects across the globe. And I want to just also say thank you. Thank you for devoting yourself to this work because it's so important, and the rest of us owe you a debt of gratitude. So thank you. And I can report that we've raised about $90,000 so far, but we're going to keep going.
Wow.
And hopefully we'll crest 6 figures. And thank you again. And I would love to talk to you more in the future. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'll be there anytime. Just let me know.
All right.
This is fantastic.
Bye.